Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. Well, spring has sprung, and so it is time for my highly aspirational seasonal TBR. In fact, I am a little bit late on this one, but I'm sure you can forgive me. I was a little busy when spring was springing. I had a little bit of a book release that kept me occupied. And so I am just a little bit late here, but I have been having a great time already reading this spring. And so let's get right into these humongous piles here of books that I can't possibly read in the season of spring. But you will see there is a method to my madness, a reason why I have all these books here. And I think I'm going to get to a lot of them. So let me explain. Actually, I'm almost done reading Fool's Fate. This is the third book in the Tawny Man trilogy, which I had been reading alongside Mike over at Mike's Book Reviews, and really just enjoying myself tremendously with Tawny Man. I will have a spoiler-free video that will summarize my thoughts on the Tawny Man trilogy, whether or not it has become my favorite trilogy thus far in Realm of the Elderlings, because I have read the previous two trilogies already and will be continuing, along with Mike, to read the rest of the Realm of the Elderlings this year. And so, yeah, I'm just about done with Fool's Fate, and I do have thoughts. I do indeed have thoughts. So look out for that video. Hobb continues to be, of course, one of my very favorite writers, period. And she impresses me to no end with her character work and her incorporation of themes, too. A lot to love about the Realm of the Elderlings. Just a brilliant, brilliant series. And Tawny Man is no exception. So I'm going to think about where I feel it ranks among the three trilogies that I've read so far. And another beloved author of mine, Ursula Le Guin, I have been reading. Now, see, again, that one I'm almost done with. This one I'm not halfway through, but I've read a good chunk of it. And I am reading the various works in the Earthsea series by Ursula K. Le Guin. And I'm having a great time discussing these with Glenn and Bill over on their channel, Non-Terrestrial Half-Life. We've done A Wizard of Earthsea and Tombs of Atuan. We're going to be doing The Farthest Shore very soon, and I'm assuming we're going to move on to Tehanu after that. And those are the four that I've read before. Those are all rereads for me. And if we continue to read the rest, and I certainly will on my own, but I hope I'll be continuing to discuss them with Bill and Glenn to do the fifth, and then the short stories and everything else, so that I will have read everything Earthsea. And I will probably, again, do a video on all of the Earthsea stuff when I'm done with it on my own, just to give my assessment of the series as a whole. But I just love Le Guin's writing. It is like coming home for me. She is a major influence on me in terms of my love of fantasy and my own writing. And I just think I love being immersed in the beauty that she creates in her world. So, beautiful stuff. This is another continuation. So again, I've already read half of this one, because this is an omnibus edition. And I will be continuing to read Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun, along with Matt over on Matt on Books, and our friend Paul Williams, who is reading it along with us. And we've been discussing, we did the Shadow of the Torture already on my channel, and Claw of the Conciliator is up next. And I'm very much looking forward to that. So be on the lookout for that discussion, which will be on Matt's channel. And I'm really happy to be finally getting to this highly praised work from speculative fiction that a lot of people are fans. They consider Gene Wolfe to be one of the greatest geniuses ever to write speculative fiction. And my exposure to it so far in Shadow of the Torturer was a lot of what I sort of expected, really, from all of the comments that I'd heard from folks. A lot of confusion, but a lot of really interesting stuff going on in terms of the idea that memory is not that reliable, and neither is language, and these are things that we rely on a lot. And so we have this very interesting narrator in this series that everyone, if you've heard anything at all about Book of the New Sun, you've heard about the unreliable narrator. So I'm interested to see what I think as I continue. Perhaps I'll get some more clarity But I am fascinated by Gene Wolfe's work so far in this series, so I'm looking forward to Claw of the Conciliator. And I will be continuing with another buddy read. This is a read that I've been doing along with Alan from the Library of Alexandria, who is a huge advocate of the Books of Babel. Ben from Overly Average Ben has joined us, and Grace Dion, and Johan from Library of Viking. So we have a good group discussing Books of Babel, and we've already done Senlin Ascends over here on my channel, and we will be doing Arm of the Sphinx discussion. I think Alan is going to be hosting this, and we kind of sort of have a date. I'm not 100% sure of it yet, but I think it's going to be happening later this month, in the month of April. So, and I loved Senlin Ascends. It was very whimsical, very eccentric, steampunk kind of read with some characters that I immediately felt attached to, both the primary character and a lot of the secondary characters. And a lot of anxiety I felt while reading Senlin Ascends. So Josiah Bancroft did a very effective job in getting me hooked. And the whole premise of this series is just very bold. My hat is off to Josiah Bancroft for pulling this off at all, let alone doing such a great job of it. So I'm really invested and looking forward to that. Another one that I'm continuing, another buddy reads. You see a theme here, a lot of buddy reads going on. I'm overcommitted, yes, I am, to buddy reads, which I love because I love discussions. And I've been in a discussion on the first book of the Greenbone Saga, which is, of course, Jade City. And now we're moving on to Jade War. The Jade City discussion was on my channel, and the group here is Jimmy from the Fantasy Network, and we have Taylor from Made Between the Pages, and Bookborn. And that was a great read, Jade City. And now I'm really looking forward to Jade War and eventually Jade Legacy, which I'll be finishing maybe in the spring, maybe even before summer. So we shall see. But definitely getting to Jade War probably in April. If not April, then early May, because this next book I have here, which is an arc of the book that wouldn't burn. And this is really exciting to me because Mark Lawrence is one of my favorite writers. And this is an arc. And this book, I think, Mark Lawrence did join me on the channel. If you missed that, it was a really wonderful discussion with the author, Mark Lawrence, talking about various things, including the book that wouldn't burn, and I got a sense that he really feels very good about this book. So I'm really excited for it, and I can't wait to share my thoughts. I'm going to be releasing a review of the book that wouldn't burn probably a week or so before the release, which is May 9, I believe. So I'm shooting for the very beginning of May to release my thoughts on the book that wouldn't burn. And yeah, I mean, I've read 3 of Mark Lawrence's trilogies, and they have all been major hits for me. And I'm very curious to see what he's up to in this one, which is, by the way, it's part 1 of the Library Trilogy. And it is, as far as I understand, unrelated to all of his previous series. So, and I have a book here that I've been intending to get to for a long time, and I'm going to do it in the spring, and that is P.L. Stewart's A Drowned Kingdom. I think most of you probably know who P.L. Stewart is. He also has been on my channel on Dear Dr. Fantasy. He is a wonderful person. He appears often on Steve's channel, Steve Talks Books, and on Taylor's channel, Made Between the Pages, as part of the page-chewing team. And he is very involved in the BookTube community and just a wonderful human being. And he has this really epic series going, and the first book in it is A Drowned Kingdom. And I'm going to be reading this. It is a self-published book, self-published series that P.L. Stewart is putting out. The 3rd book is coming out soon, so I think it's time for me to jump on board. And I'm very much looking forward to it. So, and that is also, by the way, I am trying to get back on board with reading 1 self-published book a month. I have been neglecting that because I've been in all of these buddy reads. So I would like to get back to that. And something that is going to be keeping me honest, I might as well make this announcement here. I have a bit of an announcement, guys. The announcement is I'm definitely going to be reading a lot more self-published books because I am becoming a judge for SPFBO. And so, yeah, speaking of Mark Lawrence and self-published stuff, if you don't know what SPFBO is, it's the Self-Published Fantasy Blog-Off. It's a contest that was created by Mark Lawrence for self-published fantasy authors to enter their books, the first book in their series or standalone book. And it is a competition, and it shines a light on self-published fantasy. And it has really helped boost a lot of great books and forwarded the careers of several fantasy authors. So it is a huge service, that a wonderful thing that Mark Lawrence created for the fantasy community, because there's a lot of great stuff happening nowadays in the world of self-published fantasy. And that is something that I want to do my little part to help highlight. So I am going to become a judge for SPFBO, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So, continuing with the TBR, I got this little book here, which is actually, it looks so skinny, but it's 300 pages. But okay, that's a short book by fantasy standards, and this is not a fantasy. You might be wondering, what is this book doing on Dr. Fantasy's pile? Well, this is Stoner by John Williams. You might have heard Jimmy and Alan and Joanna talking about Stoner, praising John Williams to the heavens. And I have intended to read particularly Stoner because it is about, this is maybe a little bit too close to home, but it's about an English professor. An English professor. I don't know how much resemblance I bear to the title character here. We'll see. But I'm going to read this because of Joanna sending me the book. Thank you, Joanna. And also because of her enthusiasm and Jimmy and Alan's enthusiasm. So I'm gonna squeeze this in, and we'll see what I think. Hopefully, I love it as much as they do. And of course, I'm going to be continuing with Vagabond. I have this here. Actually, this is the 7th bind-up. Murphy and I already talked about this. We've even talked about the 8th already. That recording will be out very soon on my channel, by the way. But I have this here as a reminder because essentially I've stopped buying the physical copies of Vagabond because they are just so hard to get. I didn't even get the 4th bind-up yet, and I ordered it months ago. The 8th bind-up is almost impossible, it looks like, to get, and I don't even want to try with the rest because they're going to just take forever to come to me. And Murphy and I are trying to do one a week, and so I decided to read them digitally. But I had that there to remind me. I'm going to be continuing with Vagabond, doing one bind-up a week along with Murphy, and I'm really loving this experience a ton. The manga form of storytelling has proven to be very, very a very good fit for me. And I think I've talked many times about how I read comic books as a kid, and that was my first real love of storytelling was comic books. And I know that manga is not the same as American comic books, but the idea of engaging in a story that is visual is something that is I think very natural to me because of that background. And I quickly got used to reading from right to left, so no problem there. And just the two that I've read so far, Vinland Saga and now Vagabond, have been really fantastic. Just great storytelling, wonderful incorporation of theme. Some of the themes are very close to me, so I've enjoyed it very, very much. Here's one that I'm very excited about and am definitely going to be reading in May, because I am going to be actually speaking with the author Shawna Lawless about her book, The Children of Gods and Fighting Men, which I'm very excited to read. I heard about this primarily from Ed and Will over on the Brothers Gwyn, and they've got me all excited to read this book. The cool thing is that Shawna Lawless is going to be reading my book, The Way of Edan, and we're going to be talking to each other about our books. And that is going to be really fun. So author to author, and we'll be talking about the books themselves, but also about the writing process. She is a traditionally published author, and I am a self-published author, so we'll be able to compare experiences to some extent. And also just from what I've heard about this book, The Children of God and Fighting Men, which is very much rooted in Irish mythology, I'm going to really love it. I have a feeling this is going to be a real hit for me. There's all kinds of, I'm reading the back here right now. I'm getting excited just looking at it. So I'm really looking forward to talking with Shawna Lawless in late May. And something else I'm very excited to be continuing in, and that is The Wars of Light and Shadow by Jade War. We are having our discussion on the first book, Curse of the Mistwraith, in April 22nd. It will be recorded, not a live stream, and that means that I will be reading the second book in the series shortly after that. And we're intending to have these discussions. By we, I mean myself and Jimmy from the Fantasy Network, and Joanna and AP Canavan. So the four of us are going to be reading together The Wars of Light and Shadow and having discussions that we're going to host on our various channels. The first discussion, Curse of the Mistwraith one, is going to be on my channel, and then we're going to launch into Ships of Merrier, which is in this book. Also, this book contains the War Host of Vastmark. So books 2 and 3 in The Wars of Light and Shadow, which is an 11-book series, are in this one volume as the hardcover. If you buy paperback, you'll get them separate as Ships of Merrier and War Host of Vastmark. So I'm really excited. I have read 3 books by Jade War now and loved them all. And I think that this is a series that is going to get bigger and vaster and more intricate, and just something to be immersed in as I continue to read in it. I'm very, very excited about it. And what else have I got here? Well, these I can go through really quickly. So yes, of course, I'm continuing Book of the New Sun. I've got the second omnibus, which has the 3rd and the 4th volumes there. So I just have that to kind of say, yep, I'm going to be continuing as I can get to that. And of course, continuing in the Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft, and hanging out with that gang and chatting about these books. And so that's going to be a ton of fun. And I'm not sure we'll get to all those. Maybe it'll be summer before we actually finish. We'll see. But then, of course, there's Jade Legacy as well. I got to get to that. So that's all stuff that's kind of near future. We'll see how many of them actually happen within the spring. This one I can almost guarantee is going to be, I'm going to be talking with Varsha over at Reading by the Raining Mountain about the Sandman, and that is going to be in June. So this might happen late spring. It might even be summer by the time we get to it, but June, and I'm very excited to be finally reading The Sandman, because I am a big fan of several Neil Gaiman books. I love American Gods and The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Just love them. And so I feel like I'm a fake Neil Gaiman fan until I read The Sandman, though. I think that a lot of people automatically think of The Sandman when they think of Neil Gaiman. So I do have a couple of these books ready to go, and I am very curious to see how I find it. Other things, I'm just kind of reminding myself here, this could happen also in June. So it will be happening in June, so it could be spring still, might be summer. But I'm going to be continuing in my read-along of Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb with Mike. Mike and I are going to start the next series within Realm of the Elderlings. That's the Rain Wild Chronicles. So Dragon Keeper is the first book in that, and that's something I'll be reading in June for sure. And mercifully, it seems to be shorter than Fool's Fate. So I'm looking forward to this next installment in Realm of the Elderlings for sure. And other things. I've got here a bunch of self-published books, and I am putting them here to remind myself that I'm going to be reading more and more, especially since I'm going to be an SPFEO judge. I need to get to a bunch of these before that happens. So these are roughly in the order I got them. So that is the order I more or less will be reading them, except for maybe some of them that are book 2. I just want to show this off too, though, because Joseph Carroll is a friend here. He has a great channel. If you don't know it, check it out. It's J.R. Carroll. And his covers, I just love his covers. I have read More Than a Vampire, reviewed it, and chatted with Joseph about it. And his next book in his More Than a Human series is More Than a Gunslinger. And I love how he's got this check that out. That's a really great cover. And he has a little bit of color in there. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a bit of color. There's a blue on the ring there. On the previous one, he had red. It was a blood running down a hand, I believe. So he's got this theme going here with his covers, and they're just really cool. So I hope to get to that someday. I got this book here from Michael Schultz. And it is the first book in his Rostival saga. It is called The Altar of My Fate. Michael also, by the way, has a channel here on YouTube, a fantasy and literature-related channel, a fairly new one, not very big, so check it out. Give him a little bit of support. But he is another author, self-published, who's... I have actually 3 of his books waiting to read. So I'm looking forward to that when I can get to it. And I have another self-published author who has a channel here on YouTube, a newish channel that I'm sure has lots of good content, and that is Andrew Meredith. Great fellow, actually. I've had the chance to interact with him a bit on YouTube and on Twitter. Just a great fellow. He's got this... I'm sorry, Andrew, if I mispronounce this, the Kalatian saga? Kalatian, I think. I'm going with that. This is Volume 1, Deathless Beast. And so I am looking forward to getting to Andrew's book. Actually, this was not sent to me by the author. This was sent to me by Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads, because Andrew is very sure I'm going to enjoy this. I'm also very sure I'm going to enjoy it based on my interactions with Andrew Meredith and the descriptions of his writing that I have seen. So he's a very active self-published author as well, someone to check out. And I've got here by Jeff McIntyre, The Garden Gnome. And I'm really looking forward to this one. It's the Theory of Magic, Book 1. I think there's a lot of humor in here. I think it's a fairly whimsical read from what I've gathered. And it looks like a lot of fun. And that is something I think we all could use a little bit of fun in our fantasy reading, right? Something a little more lighthearted, perhaps. But this is going to be one that I'm looking forward to very much and eventually reviewing. I'm not exactly sure. I've been thinking a little bit about how I want to review self-published books, because it is one thing I've noticed that, and this makes a certain amount of sense, reviews, as you probably all know, don't do especially well on YouTube these days. Dedicated reviews, I'm still going to do them, but I'm trying to think about how I can get the most impact for these authors when I review their books. And doing one dedicated review might not be the best way to do it, so I might end up bunching them. I'm thinking about maybe doing maybe 3 or 4 at a time. That might be one way to boost the exposure of each one. So it's just a thought. Let me know what you think of that sort of thing. I really do want to give more and more exposure to self-published fantasy. That is a part of what I want to accomplish here on the channel. So I'm going to try to see what works best. And so we'll see. Another one that I received from the author in this case, James Lloyd Doolin. I think it's Doolin. Sorry if I mispronounced it. But it's No Heart for a Thief. Another really seems like a fantastic guy. I've interacted with him some on Twitter. He's also, these days, on YouTube. He's part of a channel. You have to forgive me, James. I've forgotten the name of that channel. But James does these chats with another person on fantasy. It's like fantasy review or something like that, I think. But anyway, this book has gotten some really great praise, and so I'm really excited to read No Heart for a Thief. It seems like a kind of adventurous and with some good humor and that sort of thing, so I'm really looking forward to checking it out. And I think it's gotten some good traction lately too, so one to keep your eye on if you're interested in some wonderful self-published fantasy. Another one that I'm excited to get to, and again, these are roughly, I'm presenting these in roughly the order I got them. This is Gunmetal Gods by Zamil Akhtar, and I'm very excited to read this. I've heard a lot of people talking about it. I think probably this is one of the better known self-published fantasy books out there. I'm pretty sure it's self-published, isn't it? Yeah, I think so. So I'm looking forward to this very, very much. Also got his novella, Death Rider. So I assume maybe, well, I don't know which comes first, but I'll figure that out beforehand so I know what to do. It looks pretty grim. I've heard that this is a grim read, and so I am fully expecting to have some grimdark elements in this one, if not full out grimdark. So I have been warned, and I am looking forward to that. I got another one here, Bob the Wizard. Speaking of cool covers, check that out. That is a fantastic cover, which I think it conveys. I don't know if you can see the little fairy there next to Bob the Wizard, who has his cloud over him, which is maybe not entirely emanating from the cigar that's poking out of his mouth. But this looks like a great read. And M.V. Prindle is the author who sent me this, and I'm very excited. I won't be getting to these by any means in the spring. It'll be much later in the year when I finally do get to them. But I am looking forward to it. I have another book by an author that I have read already. This is Jeffrey Spate. I have read the first book in the archives of Evelium already. And that was Paladin Unbound, I believe. And this one is Mystic Reborn. This is book 2 in the archives of Evelium. Another great guy, another wonderful self-published author. And I am looking forward to reading book 2 in his series. And I have another book too. And this is the second book in the Ashes of Avarin series by Thiago Abdallah, whose first book I have reviewed, and I also got the wonderful opportunity to chat with Thiago for Dear Dr. Fantasy. And so I'm very excited to read A Shade of Madness and see how he builds on the first book. And he's even got a nice little blurb here from Alan. A deeply thematic exploration of death delivered through exciting battles and polished prose. Nice. So I'm very much looking forward to reading A Shade of Madness. And I've got a couple more here, and these I've only gotten recently, but I'm very excited for these. The Sword of Mercy and Wrath by N.C. Kousis. And I, again, have been hearing good things about this. This is Swords of Dominion, book 1. Look at that lovely cover. This is a beautiful looking book, and I'm excited to check it out and share my thoughts on it when I get to it. It's going to be late in the year probably, but maybe even early next year, but I'm looking forward to it. And the last one I got was João Silva's The Seeds of War. And this is the book 1 of The Smoke Smiths. Another brilliant cover. Hooray for self-published authors producing awesome covers. I think that self-published authors are at the forefront nowadays of best covers. And I think that it's exciting times for self-published fantasy with all of the access that we now have to editing services and to great artists and the community and the potential to market on social media, everything else. Very exciting times. So those are, as you can see, I've finally gotten rid of all that stuff. I wanted to show off those self-published books. I'll be getting to all of them eventually, not necessarily in the spring, but eventually, and I'm looking forward to it all. Thank you so much for watching this, and I look forward to seeing you in my next videos. Until next time.